Artistic Gamer 7, and welcome back to another video here on the channel. This is the first official build of my Sims 4 haunted builds. I did the one which was just a basic simple haunted house, which some houses that are actually haunted may end up looking similar to that, for all I know. I know a lot of them that I've actually watched videos of have similar to that. But, so that's why I sort of built it the way I did. But this is the first one that is a build actually based off an actual supposed haunted location. And I chose this particular one because I actually know where this one is, roughly. As in not just the I've been close to it. I can easily get to this any day that I want to. I actually really would love to go visit this place. This would be one of the ones that I'd 100% really want to go visit and do some sort of tour or something of historical what the heck, a tour or a ghost tour, either one. I will say I probably wouldn't want to go during this particular month because they start focusing on more of the Halloween stuff. So I don't know if they're even doing it this year because what's going on. And even what dates they do it. I know that they don't do it the whole month, and I know a lot of times they actually do have some ghost stuff going on during the month. A lot of times they've had special guests come. I haven't even said what this build is yet, even though you've seen it in the thing. But anyway, I would love to go here. I'll get more into that later. But I would love to go here eventually one time. I want to go for the actual historical or ghostly tours, or both, not the Halloween stuff, because the Halloween stuff has people actually dressing up and things like that. I don't mind going to these fake haunted houses or whatever, the Halloween haunted houses, but at the same time I'm not as interested in going to them as I am something for a historical or ghostly purpose. So yeah, but this one, like I said, it is actually not too far away from me. It's still I wouldn't even say a decent drive, because technically it's pretty close to where I usually work at. Obviously right now I am jobless, but the town that I usually work at, it's the next town or two over. I think there's a town in between them. It's a very small town. But yeah, so, and this is St. Albans Sanatorium in Radford, Virginia. So this one I know has had a few shows. I can't remember all the shows who have actually come here. I do know recently I've started rewatching a lot of ghost shows that I've watched in the past and trying to find some new ones. Slowly over time I'm hoping that my suggestions start leaning me more towards more of this stuff so I can see more new stuff. But find some of the ones that I used to watch, and hopefully it will start suggesting some new ones. Which it has some, so I've gotten some new ones that I hadn't watched before that I'd watched. But I do know as of recently, Ghost Asylum was here. I want to say there's at least 2 other places that did shows here. I do know that Steve and Tango from Ghost Hunters has been here. They did one of those special events during October where they actually talk about ghost stuff. So I don't know if there was a tour going on. I just remember seeing about it, and I thought that was really cool. And I want to go, but one, I don't want to go by myself. I don't like going anywhere by myself. It's not the whole scary aspect of it. You could be talking about a movie, the mall, the theme, amusement park or whatever. I just don't want to go by myself, to things like that. Anything that is on the lines of entertainment, attraction, those type of things, I don't want to go by myself. I want to have someone there to enjoy it with. So, and a lot of people, though they've showed some excitement in going to places, and I'll get times where I've had friends yeah, we should go to all these places, and we even start deciding some of these places, and St. Albans is one of the ones that's pretty much always on the list of trying to go to. But it never happens, sadly. Something comes up, or all of a sudden everyone else stops talking. I don't know, it makes me sad. But anyway. So yeah. So this is part 1. I definitely know there's at least going to be 2 parts. And potentially 3. I don't know about the 3rd, because technically, as the moment of me doing this voiceover, I'm not done with this build. I really wanted to make sure to get at least part 1 out by Wednesday. If I can get both parts, and if there is 3 parts, all out on Wednesday, I will do so, but it's not looking like it because I ended up having a dentist appointment today, today is Tuesday, so I'm recording this voiceover the day before I post this. And though I'm making quite a bit of progress and like I've gotten a lot done in the build, it's still nowhere near to the point where I would say I think I'm going to get it done before Wednesday. But yeah, I'm going to try. I'm going to try my best, but I don't see it happening. So, more likely part 2 and potentially part 3, if it has to come to a part 3, will be out on Saturday. So you can look forward to that on Saturday, but this part is for surely coming out on Wednesday to at least get it out there. I underestimated the amount of building that, I knew it was going to be a lot, but I didn't realize how long it was going to take, and I was originally going to half it more than I was, because this building is huge. I actually have never personally, like I said, I wanted to visit it, but I haven't even, got anywhere near the building. Personally, I've been in Radford a lot, and probably have been pretty close to it, but I've never actually been close enough to see the building itself. But I know the building's huge. This is the biggest lot that I'm building on in Sims, and I knew the whole thing was not going to fit. There's some areas that I actually had to crunch things together or make my own judgment call on because the building didn't fit. And I am actually going by a blueprint. I did actually find a blueprint. It's an older blueprint, so it's very blurry. Sort of hard to read. I did mention in one previous video that I actually did some classes fooling with AutoCAD and things like that. We actually got to work with and see how houses are built and blueprints are made, and there's a program that we worked with where we made a really simple small house, and in the program it actually changes it to a blueprint, but my teacher was he started a lot of this stuff during when you didn't have computers, so he also showed us actual blueprints that were hand-drawn and all this stuff, and so that's what I was looking at. So I had at least somewhat of an idea of what I was looking at, but it was still very, very confusing with a building this big and a building that isn't meant to be a house. He only really showed us house stuff to start with. If I would have continued on with the program, which I don't even know why. The program I was in for definitely wasn't for building houses. It was just one of the programs basically suggested to us to be additional help that can maybe help us on our career path that we were going. But it didn't make sense for me, but the program was new, so I feel part of those were just to try to get something in there. Something for you to do, something to fill up your credits and classes and things like that, and at least get you started to move on to a better, because it was a community college. But yeah, so I know a decent amount of what I'm looking at when I'm looking at blueprints, but like I said, it was an old blueprint. It was the way the picture was taken, some parts were blurry, not all the rooms were mentioned. It was mainly patient rooms that were mentioned that they were a patient room. There was some that was mentioned as bath or toilet, which them saying that a difference, I know why it's a difference, especially in this particular building because of the stories and stuff. But I will say, as the process of going through and decorating this, I'm probably not going to be, I know I'm not going to be on a T to it, because some of the rooms, I don't know what they are. Some of the rooms, I'm going to be getting mixed up on whether it was just a toilet, considered just a toilet room, or a bathroom. So I definitely won't have this nowhere near exact. I'm just going based off of what pictures I can find, what I remember seeing in shows that I've seen about this, and things like that. So none of these are going to be exact, because it's going to be hard to, even though a lot of people take pictures of haunted places when they go visit them, they don't tend to say what room it is, or what floor it's on, or any of that stuff. So I'm literally just going to be doing my best. This is my best attempt close to get to it. Now, I did mention in this series I was going to be talking about the horror stuff, which I will be. That's probably going to be in part 2, because I do want to talk about, my plans basically for all these is talk about my building process, then start heading into the historical side to it, because a lot of times the historical side is a big part to why it is considered haunted, or why a lot of people think it's haunted, so that to lead up to the hauntings of it. So, should have said that earlier on, but anyway, so yeah. But anyway, back to what I was saying with the building. So, since I did have the blueprint, I did try to get as close as possible, and that's what I'm going to do with all these builds. I'm going to try to get as close as possible as I can, but not every one of them is going to have a blueprint. not everyone's going to have a picture of every single room and all that stuff. So I'm going to try my best. This one especially, I know there's no way that there's pictures of every single room. This build, and it's part of the reason why, like, I knew this build was going to be big. I knew this build was going to be a bit of a challenge. Once I got actually building it based off of the blueprint, I realized how much of a challenge it was. Because, one, partially because some of the rooms don't mention what they are, so, you know, me trying to convey that into Sims, like, whether the room should be bigger or not, because I've had to tweak things, and trying to figure out how many grid boxes make it most equal to what it probably is supposed to look like compared to the blueprint. So I was guesstimating on a lot of these room sizes. I was trying my best to get it to a point where it looked as close as possible to it. But yeah, I was definitely a little stressed when building this. And also, obviously, there's a lot of things in Sims that are limited when it comes to trying to build them based off of real buildings, especially when it's not a house. Because for Sims, for a lot of the part, it's more meant for building houses. Though you do have community lots. There are a lot of modern community lots, and usually you're not trying to build anything that's remotely like a hospital, even though there's a hospital if you play Get to Work, and if you put on the enable free build sheet, you can actually build there and stuff and change it. And I've always had plans to even go and change those lots a little bit, but I've never have yet. So, but yeah, there was limitations, and one of the things that I know that I omitted from it is there was mentionings of elevators, and there was some parts that, when looking at the blueprint, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be an elevator. But trying to read the blueprints still, like, where it was all blurry and it was slightly older image. There was some newer images, but it wasn't, like, of the full building. It was, like, it said it was the main floor, but it was only, like, a section of the main floor. Part of me wonders if that's, like, sections that they've worked on redoing, or, you know, the sections that they do tours at. I'm not really sure, but it definitely wasn't the whole entire building. I was able to find the basement, because the basement wasn't a part of the blueprint that I was mainly using for the whole build. And I knew there was a basement, and there's quite a few ghost stories attached to the basement. And the fact that there's a bowling alley down there, I was like, I have to build the basement. And I'm not sure if that is the full-size basement or not. I'm just going off of what I could find for the basement blueprints. So, it at least worked. At least something. I'm still at least getting the bowling alley, because the bowling alley was represented in the blueprints that I found for the basement. So, I was like, at least the bowling alley's there, because that was the main point that I wanted to do for the basement. So yeah, if you're a little confused just looking at my layouts of how I built this, it's very confusing. And the roofs got even harder. Especially the third level roof. The third level, once I go to actually put objects in it, I've already went up and put the wallpaper and stuff like that. I decided not to, because I actually could have included the wallpaper in this part, but it would have made the video just a little bit longer than I wanted to, and a lot of times I cut the wallpaper out for a lot of builds. And I decided, and I even cut out some layout stuff and some roofing stuff when it comes to the build process. But for this particular build, I decided not to try to cut out too much. But with the wallpaper, I was partially confused on what rooms I was doing what wallpaper and flooring. I didn't try to do too many crazy things, because for this type of build, obviously, they're probably going to have the same wallpaper and same flooring. In a lot of the rooms, only some rooms are different. So I had reasons for doing certain flooring and certain wallpaper in the rooms, but then I started getting them confused, because I was doing all the patient rooms the same, but then I did them one way, and I was like, no, I should do them this way. So I did cut out that, because it got a little confusing after a while, and also just because of time-wise. Also with the stairs, I will say, if you ever go to build something like this, I forget about the stairs all the time. Try to remember, if you're just putting stairs in for placement, try to remember if you're wanting the stairs that have the walls underneath them or not, because when you go to change them, if you start with one or the other, the walls will either stay there or not be there at all. So when I went to go change them, I had to redo all the stairs, because I wanted to change the look of the stairs, but the placement of the stairs was where I wanted it. But because the stairs I chose as a temporarily placement didn't have the walls underneath it, when I tried to replace them, they still didn't have the walls underneath them. So I had to completely delete them and completely put in new stairs. So that was a little bit of frustration that I could have avoided. But like I was saying, with the third floor, which I'm building now, and you should be seeing the roofs soon. The roofs were quite annoying, and when I go to build up there, it's gonna so annoy me. Because I basically had to put the roofs mainly on the second floor to get the look and feel of the building the best I could in Sims. So the roof, when I'm trying to decorate the third floor, the roofs are going to be there. And I'm going to see them, and they're going to be in the way, so I'm going to have to build and, like, decorate in certain ways with the walls either completely down or with them halfway down and try to do my best. So, you know, that's a whole lot of fun. And I will say, with the stairs, that's another thing. I'm talking about them when it comes to placement. I'm not 100% sure if they're in the right way. Some of them, it was very obvious on the blueprints that they were going upstairs or downstairs, and some of them didn't seem to go anywhere. There was one set of stairs I did omit. I did go to put them down and things like that, but I omitted them once I went to go do the basement, because with the basement layouts, I found it made no sense. There's potentially more of a basement layout that I just couldn't see because of the way they did the newest layouts, but, you know, I tried. But I just decided to omit them. Some things were, you know, decided on my own free will, because just to get the look that I was wanting to. And like I said, some places I had to cut some of the buildings off, and I just sort of squished them together and tried to do it the best I could, because this lot is not big enough for how big of a building this is. Why I chose the biggest building to start with, I don't know. I mean, I partially chose it because I actually know where it's at. I'm very familiar with it. I always found it fascinating because when it showed up on shows, because I'm like, that's really close to where I live. Like, I know where that's at. I could go visit there. I could travel there in a day. Easily. Not even a whole day. It's like, probably like an hour 30 drive. Maybe. I don't know exactly where in Radford it is. I just know where Radford is, and I'm actually at Radford quite often. I'll actually be in Radford tomorrow. That's part of the reason why I can't work on the build tomorrow morning, because I have plans. But anyway. Now, once I start putting wallpaper and windows up, you will notice that I use two different windows on part of the building. I was trying to find out exactly when this happened, because I remember hearing in the shows that I watched, like at least two of them. So like I said, I know there's at least two shows out there of the coming to St. Albans. I'm pretty sure there's a third one though. But I remember in two of them talking about the fact that part of the building was added on at a different date than the other one. And you can even see it in some pictures. Now, the right side of the building is not shown in as many pictures as the left side of the building. So I have a lot more reference pictures that easily show the left side of the building, which is where I got most of the roofing now. And the right half of the building, there's not as many pictures of. I think that was the newer edition. And I think, like, it's not, there's still reports of hauntings and things like that, and there's, like, obviously some historical things in there as well, but there's not quite as many as the other side, I believe, so I think that's partially why there's not nearly as many photos of that side of it as there is the other side. So there is two different windows for that. I had to use my best judgment, because I couldn't find anywhere where it exactly said how much of the building was newly added, and how much of it was the older part, and how much they may have had to change the older part to accommodate the newer section added onto it. And I don't even know the time frame of when this was added on. It could have been very early in this building's lifespan or very late. I at least know that it was there when St. Albans was a sanatorium, because it wasn't always a sanatorium. So the history of this location actually starts a really long time ago, and it was before there was a building, because they believe that this event potentially caused some of the hauntings. Basically, the location of where St. Albans is at and stuff like that is very close to the New River watershed, and this, back in the 1700s, it was sort of attracted Native Americans and the early settlers to this spot because of its location and because of New River. Which this, obviously, like, if you know a lot about history, a lot of times when the settlers and the Native Americans ran into each other, a lot of times there ended up being disputes. This was definitely one of the cases. There was hostilities between both of them. And it was around in July of 1755 that the I'm gonna say, hopefully I don't say this name wrong. I'm really bad at pronouncing things, but I really feel bad when it's like an actual group of people and I pronounce it wrong, but I'm hopefully saying this right. It was the Shawnee Indians. Eventually, actually, the fight and between the two basically came to a climax. They attacked the colonists of Draper's Meadow, and it killed at least 5 people and taking others hostage. 2 of the survivors actually was 2 that actually recounted some of the things that happened. They were delivered. This is going to be a little graphic. They were delivered basically the head of Philip Barker. I'm assuming he's probably someone important. I didn't research him in particular, but into the history of this place, he is mentioned. Now, there was a girl named Mary Draper that was actually one of the ones that was held captive. I think she was even held for ransom by the Shawnee in a town that I'm definitely not going to try to pronounce their town because I'm going to botch that all up. But she had actually witnessed the death of her mother and her sister-in-law's baby, and there's a few different accounts apparently, but she did witness it, and all of them apparently was quite grisly. It does tell me a little bit of what happened, but I'm not gonna say what exactly happened. But she was eventually able to get free. Now, in some cases, it's said that she basically had to abandon her baby that she had birth while she was in captivity, but that's not a clear thing. There also was a woman that she escaped with that was apparently potentially tried to eat her because it was such a long journey and they were so hungry. And this was from, it says Big Bone Lick, which I think, according to this map that I'm seeing, it looks like it may be somewhere in Ohio. It says it was a 1,000-mile trek, and it took them 3 days to get back down to Virginia. Now, all this events and all the things that happened in this location believed to be some of the maybe starters of some of the potential things leading to the paranormal activity in this location because this happened on or very close to the location where St. Albans was built. Now, when St. Albans was first actually built, like the building itself, it was constructed in 1892, but it was not a sanatorium. It was actually first functioned as a Lutheran boys' school. George W. Miles was the one who was behind basically the creation of the Lutheran boys' school. He had like this vision of producing like these gentlemen, very talented gentlemen as well. But it ended up not being a school that was that such way. It wasn't as good as he was hoping it would be. Now, they did do a lot of competitions. They were extremely competitive. I think they did actually do well in sports and things like that. But because of the competitive nature and the way that the school actually ended up being set apart, things like bullying was actually sort of encouraged. It was never really met with any punishment, because basically it was like, become stronger, be better, whatever. So it was never addressed because of this competitive nature, the bullying, and the bullying was done by students and staff members alike. Sadly, it ended up being a place where a lot of deaths happened and suicides because of all this. Now, this location stayed the Lutheran boys' school that until a few years after Miles's death in 1903. In 1916, Dr. John C. King was the next person to acquire the property. He wanted to make it become his vision of introducing basically a top-notch psychiatric hospital. So this is where, it really became a sanatorium. Apparently he did not really like the conditions of a previous asylum that he had been a part of. It actually says what he was, but I didn't look it up. But I think it's something similar to an internship or something along those lines. But, so yeah, he wanted to turn St. Albans into more of a high-class place, basically nicer in a way, but that's obviously not what happened. But that's why there's, like, the bowling alley, there was, like, gardens introduced in the back. It was supposed to be a more nicer place for these people to be at. But sadly, back in the day, that was not a common thought process between a lot of people, with the people that had more of these mental issues, sadly. As many probably know, during the 1900s, people that had, like, mental disabilities or any sort of thing in those lines, psychiatric stuff, was not given the best of treatment. A lot of times they were basically used as experiments, lab rats for doctors and stuff to try to test on. There was a lot of things like lobotomy, there was insulin-induced comas, and a lot of times those two especially would leave the patients brain dead or just dead, sadly. There also was a lot of electroshock stuff, water bath treatments, but obviously those things also had issues. I know with, like, the electroshock stuff, seizures was a common after effect. I think even fractures a lot of times was presented in how violent these were because of how much they did it and how intense it was. So people here still did not have an easy time like he had envisioned. A lot of bad stuff still happened. A lot of frequent deaths sadly occurred here on the place. Basically, this building almost never had a good history, so there's basically just an overall sort of bad feeling when you go here in general, just because of what has happened here. Luckily, things nowadays have gotten better, but because of all this, eventually the sanatorium did close down. I think it was eventually actually taken by Carillion healthcare system in the 1990s, but they actually apparently evacuated the property in 2003, which I didn't actually realize and think that it wasn't that long ago that this may have been something functioning to any degree. But after it sort of just sat there for a while, that's when, like, vandalism and things like that started happening. A lot of people was just going in there stealing stuff and having dares, throwing parties, basically, like, just whatever. That's how a lot of the building has got into a state of disarray as it's gotten into, just because of it being left abandoned for so many years. But eventually, a man named Tim Gregory actually obtained the property, which actually used to be a patient here at the sanatorium. I don't know when the time frame of that was. Obviously, that's something that is private and would not be said unless maybe he tells people. But it could be during when Carillion had it. Could have been the sanatorium years. I slightly doubt that, but it could be him. I don't know. I don't know how old this guy is. So, but yeah, he obtained it, and he now wants to actually try to renovate. I think he's been trying to renovate it, or at least that was his goal when he first bought it. I'm not as sure if he's still trying to, but he does obviously allow ghost tours and stuff in there. They do the Halloween stuff around this time of month as well. And honestly, for all I know, that may be why half of the building has different windows. I really thought they had said something about one of the parts of the buildings being built on later, but they also could have been talking about buildings around there, because I know that there are a few buildings along the side of St. Albans that are there now, but the renovation, the different windows on the different sides, because you can see it in pictures, like the few newer pictures I can find of the right side of the building had some different windows in it as well. So that might be part of the reason. Might be some renovation that's been done. Who knows? But anyway, I hope that you're liking this video so far. Like I said, part 2 should potentially be out after this one. If not, it's going to be out Saturday. I hope you're enjoying this so far. I will be going over the more ghostly stuff in the next part. I'll still probably talk about some of the building process here and there just to add to it, especially if I encounter something new, because like I said, I'm not finished with this build as the point of this voiceover. So anyway, but yeah, I hope you're liking this build so far, and I hope you sort of like this little mini-series that I'm trying to do for October, where I try to recreate haunted places and sort of talk about their history and their little ghostly parts of them as well. feel free to let me know down in the comments below some suggestions of haunted buildings that maybe you would like to hear more about, and maybe have me try them in Sims. Obviously, you know, I picked a very huge one this time. Huge builds are going to have some limitations, like this one I had to cut off some, so just keep that in mind. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you hit that lovely like button and all that lovely YouTube goodiness, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!